Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to unpack some big ideas and hopefully pull out insights you can actually use.
Yeah, and today we're tackling a huge one, really.
Yeah.
What does it even mean to live a good life, an ideal human life?
Exactly. It's a question that feels, well, timeless.
It really is. And what's fascinating is looking at how different traditions, ancient China, Africa, Greece, the Islamic world, they all ask this. We've looked at a bunch of sources
Hmm.
and found some, surprising overlaps, but also really interesting differences.
So, the plan for this deep dive is to try and boil down what these ancient thinkers saw as the path to flourishing.
Right. And then crucially, think about how that ancient wisdom might actually speak to your life right now.
It should be quite a journey. We're going to dig into some really foundational stuff.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Where should we start? Maybe ancient China.
Let's do that. Let's start with Confucianism and the Junzi. Now, Confucius was living during a really turbulent time, wasn't he? The Eastern Chao dynasty.
Absolutely crucial context. Yeah, massive social upheaval, warlords, chaos. His philosophy wasn't just abstract thinking, it was a direct response, trying to figure out how to restore order and unity.
Okay, so the Junzi, the superior person, emerges from that need for order.
Precisely. And what's so interesting is that this superiority isn't about birth or status. It's not innate.
Right.
It's something achieved. It takes um, constant self-examination, self-reform, basically a lifetime of moral effort.
That feels incredibly relevant today, doesn't it? This idea that character is something you actively build day in, day out, not just something you are.
Exactly. Confucianism puts huge emphasis on ethics, on having an orderly society, on, correct
Mhm.
relationships. The whole point, Guide by Ren Humanity, is figuring out what it means to be a person.
And he had some pretty direct quotes on this, didn't he? Like, a superior man follows righteousness as the standard.
Yeah, not for anything or against anything. It's about principle-based action, not just going with the flow or being oppositional. It's not about being passive.
Mm. And that other one never abandons humanity, even for the lapse of a single meal. That constant commitment.
It really underscores that continuous effort. And the idea that a good name is worth more than silver or gold character is paramount.
Which links to leadership, right? And starting this development early.
Absolutely. Good character seen as essential for leadership. And this brings up that classic question, nature versus nurture, which actually leads us nicely to West Africa, to Yoruba thought, and the Omoluwabi.
Okay, the Omuluwabi. The Yoruba, I understand, really emphasize character, maybe even more than just book learning.
Very much so. There's that saying, a good person is not equivalent to a learned person. Their traditional education prioritizes moral development.
So, what defines the Omuluwabi? What does that term mean?
It's essentially the ideal person, someone embodying all virtues, the peak of moral development. Literally, it translates to something like the Bedi Bibaten by the chief of Ibaya, and Iwa means character.
Wow, so character is the chief, the source,
Mhm.
and the education system aims for this.
Yeah, the goals are really broad. Strong character, being useful to the community, respecting elders, intellectual skills, honest work, a sense of belonging, cultural heritage. It's holistic.
That sounds incredibly comprehensive. But you mentioned nature versus nurture. Is there debate within Yoruba thought about whether you're born an Omuluwabi or become one?
Yes, that's a really interesting nuance. The philosopher Sophie Olawole, for instance, leans towards nurture. She describes the Omoluwabi as someone who behaves well because they've been well nurtured and follow the precepts they've learned.
So it's about living out your upbringing, your education.
Pretty much. And is contrasted with negative terms, like calling someone a caricature person or worthless child if they fail to live up to this ideal. There are even discussions around moral dilemmas, like can an Omoluwabi steal if their life depends on it? It shows it's not rigid dogma, but about continuous alignment with values.
It's striking how similar themes are emerging already. Both Confucianism and Yoruba thought stress character from childhood. It's linked to leadership and respect for elders, caring for parents.
Definitely. Both are pushing for this ideal of a gentle person of character focused on righteous actions, moderation, respect. It's about who you are fundamentally.
Okay, so let's shift gears and head to classical Greece. Aristotle and Plato. Aristotle's big concept is eudaimonia. Now, people often just say happiness, but it's much deeper than that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Eudaimonia isn't just feeling good momentarily, it's human flourishing, a state of holistic development achieved by consistently practicing virtue guided by reason.
So it's an activity, a way of living.
Exactly, it's not passive.
Right.
Aristotle saw humans as fundamentally rational and social creatures. Our ability to use reason to guide our emotions and desires towards harmony, that's what sets us apart and allows for a moral life.
And how do we actually do that? How do we cultivate these virtues he talks about?
He breaks them down. There are intellectual virtues like wisdom, interesting, you get those through learning, through education.
Okay.
And then there are moral virtues, courage, generosity, justice, self-control. These aren't innate. They're formed by habit, by practice.
So, like learning an instrument,
Yeah,
you get better by doing it repeatedly.
precisely. His example is bravery.
Mm.
You become brave not by wishing it, but by facing fearful situations repeatedly and choosing to act courageously. Action shapes habit. Habit shapes character.
And this ties into his famous doctrine of the middle way, doesn't it? Finding the balance.
Exactly. Virtue, for Aristotle, usually lies in this middle ground, this mean between two extremes, excess and deficiency.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Courage is the mean between recklessness, which is too much boldness, and cowardice, which is too little. Generosity is the mean between extravagance and stinginess.
But it's not just a simple average, right? It's
Yeah.
flexible.
Right. It's not mathematical. It requires what he called phronesis, practical reason, or wisdom. It's the ability to see what the right action is in a specific situation, applying general principles flexibly. It makes virtue a living thing.
I see.
Although he was very clear, some actions, like theft or murder, are just bad. There's no virtuous middle way for those.
Got it. And you mentioned humans being social. How does community fit into eudaimonia?
It's essential. Aristotle believed you can't truly flourish in isolation or in an unjust society. Virtues like justice and friendships are fundamental. External goods, health, wealth, etc. They can help, they're supportive conditions,
Mm,
but they aren't the essence of flourishing. A truly virtuous person, guided by reason, could maintain their inner well-being even facing adversity.
that's a powerful idea. Resilience through virtue.
Mm.
Now, how does Plato fit in? His ideal human, rooted in Socrates, defining humans by their rationality.
Plato comes at it through the structure of the soul. He proposed this tripartite soul. You have the mind or reason, the will or spirit, and the appetite or desires.
Okay, three parts.
And for Plato, the ideal person achieves justice to Kaizen when these parts are in harmony, with reason firmly in charge, guiding the will and keeping the appetites in check. It's about internal order.
An inner republic, almost. And didn't he connect this inner state to the larger state and even the cosmos?
He absolutely did. He believed the individual mirrors the state, and that to understand society, you had to understand the cosmos, this eternal, rational order. Human laws and individual souls should strive to reflect that cosmic harmony.
That sounds like a tall order. Is that where the philosopher kings come in?
Exactly. The idea was to unite political power with true philosophical understanding, with reason. His allegory of the cave paints this picture vividly, the difficult, painful journey from ignorance, the shadows, towards genuine understanding, the light. It takes effort.
And Plato also had ideas about the soul being immortal, existing before and after the body, right? Remembering knowledge.
Yes, a dualist view. The soul is immortal, and learning is often framed as a kind of recollection of knowledge the soul possessed before incarnation.
But there's a key distinction to make here about the forms, isn't there? He didn't believe in a form of the soul?
Right. That's a common misunderstanding. Plato's forms, like the form of good or beauty or justice, are these perfect, eternal, unchanging archetypes existing on a separate plane. Individual souls, while immortal, are not forms. They exist within the world, they change, they can be virtuous or vicious, they participate in the forms, perhaps, but they aren't forms themselves. Souls are individual, forms are universal blueprints.
That clarifies things. We've covered a lot of ground: China, West Africa, Greece. It's amazing how they all tackled this question of the ideal human.
Mm.
How do we start comparing these, maybe bringing in other traditions too, without losing the nuance?
Well, that's the challenge and the reward of comparative philosophy, isn't it? It really makes you examine your own assumptions. Before we compare directly, though, let's widen the lens again and touch on Islamic Sufism and Zoroastrianism. They offer yet more perspectives on this universal quest.
Okay, Sufism first. The concept of the perfect human, al-insan al-kamil. That sounds incredibly significant.
It really is. In Sufi thought, Al-Insano Kamil is seen as the microcosm, embodying both the form of the world and the form of the real, of God. They are God's deputy, the Khalifa, on earth.
A bridge between the divine and the created world.
In a sense, yes. The concept is tied to the Milanodon reality, seen as the first expression of the divine will, the sort of blueprint for creation. The perfect human spiritual state encompasses all levels of existence, from the highest divine attributes down to the physical world.
So what's the goal for someone on the Sufi path in relation to this?
The ultimate attainment is reaching this state of human perfection through direct experience, the self-disclosure of the essence, which is essentially realizing God's own self-knowledge within oneself.
Oh, wow.
Achieving this state is believed to grant mastery over one's entire being, freeing the individual from limitations.
That's profound. Now let's rewind way back, even before the Greeks, to Zoroaster or Zarathustra, around 3,770 years ago.
That's the estimate, yeah. His teachings, preserved in the Gathas, the 17 hymns, predate Greek ethics significantly.
And what's distinctive about Zoroastrian ethics?
A key thing is that it's highly reflective, not prescriptive. It doesn't just hand you a list of rules. It encourages you to think, to consider the context, the time, place, means, consequences, and make choices based on good thinking.
So it emphasizes personal responsibility and judgment. What are the guiding principles then, if not strict rules?
They're often called the primal principles of life. Central is Mazda Ahura, the wise lord, the creator of a good, orderly universe. Then there's Vohumana, the good mind.
The good mind.
Yes, the source of wisdom and all good things. It leads directly to the core ethical triad. Humata, Hukta, Sharshta, good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. That's fundamental.
Okay. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. What else?
There's Asha, which is huge. It means something like precision, righteousness, or cosmic order. It's the universal law that governs everything, ensuring justice and truth. Living in accordance with Asha is key.
Aligning yourself with the way things ought to be.
Exactly. And there's Spintamenu, the progressive mentality, the creative force that sustains and advances creation towards perfection. Others include Sarausha, the inner voice or conscience, Harvatat, wholeness or perfection, and Amaritat, immortality.
That sounds like a very positive and forward looking worldview. What kind of society does it envision?
One that's responsible, free, peaceful, prudent, and progressive. Importantly, it stresses the equality of men and women, and that true superiority comes from wisdom and righteousness, Asha, not from race, class, or anything else.
And the dualism in Zoroastrianism, good versus evil, where does that fit?
Crucially, Zoroaster's dualism is ethical, located within the human mind. It's the constant choice between Spentamenu, aggressive good mentality, and Angramenu, destructive harmful mentality. It's not a cosmic battle between two equal gods. The universe itself is fundamentally good. The struggle is internal.
And this philosophy had real world impact. You mentioned Cyrus the Great earlier.
Yes, historically, the Achaemenid Empire under Cyrus, who was likely influenced by these principles, was known for its relative tolerance, freedom of worship, and fostering of knowledge and science. It suggests these ethical ideas can underpin a flourishing society.
Okay, we've journeyed through Confucianism, Yoruba thought, Aristotle, Plato, Sufism, and Zoroastrianism. An incredible range. Now let's try to bring it together. How do we compare these meaningfully?
It is tricky. Comparative philosophy requires care. You don't want to flatten the differences or impose one framework onto another. But the value is immense. It really forces you to question your own assumptions about what's normal or right.
How so?
Well, take the concept of rights, for example. Does Confucianism have a concept of rights? It depends entirely on how broadly or narrowly you define rights. Asking the question pushes you to clarify what you mean by rights and understand the Confucian focus on duties and relationships more deeply. It expands your thinking.
Okay, so avoiding simple answers. What about areas where there seems to be genuine overlap? Virtue ethics seems like a big one.
Definitely. There are really strong parallels between Aristotle, Confucianism, and even modern Western virtue ethics. All focus on character traits, on living a good life overall, and on reasoning that depends on the specific context.
Like the discussions of courage you mentioned.
Exactly. Mencius, a later Confucian, and Aristotle, despite their different contexts, explore courage in ways that resonate. They both see it as crucial for flourishing. And Confucianism offers this incredibly rich moral psychology, viewing emotions not necessarily as obstacles, but as potential foundations for virtue.
That's interesting, yeah. Different from some Western views where reason has to conquer emotion.
Right. And this Confucian view aligns quite well with some findings in modern cognitive science about the role of emotion in decision making.
What about the role of the individual versus the community? That seems like a point of difference, especially between, say, Confucianism and Western individualism.
It often is. The Confucian self is deeply embedded in relationships and social roles. Western traditions, particularly post Enlightenment, tend to emphasize individual autonomy and rights more heavily.
Is one simply better than the other?
Comparative philosophy suggests it's more complex. You can have what's called evaluational incommensurability. Both traditions might prioritize genuinely valuable, but different, goods like deep community belonging versus robust individual freedom. Both are reasonable positions, just with different emphasis. It helps us appreciate a wider range of human values.
Okay, that makes sense. What about something really distinct, like the Taoist idea of Wu Wei? Non-action.
Ah, Wu Wei. It's often misunderstood as doing nothing, but it's more like effortless action, acting in harmony with the natural flow of things, being receptive and flexible.
Like the skilled artisan examples.
Exactly. Cooking, carving the ox without dulling his knife because he follows the natural structure. Woodcarver King seeing the bell stand in the wood. It's about mastery achieved through attunement, not forceful assertion. While you might find echoes in Western thought, it never became as central an ideal as it did in Taoism.
And it seems Chinese philosophy often integrates practices beyond just logical argument, right? Like ritual or meditation.
Very much so. Memorization of classics, participation in rituals, meditation, solens, these are often seen as integral parts of the philosophical path, ways to cultivate character and understanding that aren't purely discursive or analytical. It suggests thinking and acting well involves more than just logic.
So, pulling all this diverse wisdom together, how can it help us navigate modern life? Things like consumerism, technology overload.
Well, Aristotle's call for balance, for the middle way, seems incredibly relevant, doesn't it? Finding that mean between, say, constant digital distraction and complete disconnection, cultivating self discipline against the pull of overconsumption. It's about prioritizing inner flourishing over endless external seeking.
And Taoist ideas might caution against rigid thinking in the face of rapid change.
Perhaps, yeah. The emphasis on flexibility, on not being trapped by fixed concepts, could be helpful.
What about bigger societal issues? Inequality, environmental crises.
Aristotle's point that you can't achieve eudaimonia in an unjust society is a direct challenge. It implies a responsibility to address inequality. And Zoroastrianism's focus on progress, on actively making the world better, fresco caridi, continuous refreshing, and its vision of a responsible global society speaks directly to environmental stewardship and social justice.
It feels like the common thread through almost all of these is this call for self reflection and conscious effort.
Absolutely. Whether it's the Confucian self-examination, the Aristotelian practice of virtue, the Sufi path of self-knowledge, or the Zoroastrian choice for good thoughts, words, and deeds, they all emphasize that we shape ourselves through our choices and habits. They guide us towards a meaningful life, not just a comfortable one.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear the quest for the ideal way to live for human flourishing is incredibly ancient and universal.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the answers, while diverse, often circle back to similar themes: character, reason, community, balance, self-awareness, ethical action. From the Omuluwabi to eudaimonia, the Al-Insan al-Kamil to the Jinzi, the paths might differ, but the destination human excellence is shared.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? How do these ancient ideas challenge your own assumptions about what makes a life good? Which path resonates most strongly with you right now?
And what might you gain from consciously bringing some of this reflective, comparative spirit into your own life, looking at these enduring human questions from fresh, ancient perspectives?
Something to definitely keep exploring. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.